What's up, everyone? Trust the Profits here. It is officially Kentucky Derby season. Let's go. What up? We are pumped. We are 6-7 days away from the official, what I call the official kickoff, Lecomte Stakes at Fairgrounds, where the points really start to calculate. Colin Sheehan, what up, my man? Are you excited or what? Are we ready?
I mean, I've been excited since the Derby prep show started. We're on episode 11 already, so I'm already in the mode of Derby season. But you're right. This is really when the fact that we're having this show shows that now we're really starting to hit the groove. The 2-year-olds have turned 3. And now those that have won will start facing each other. And to me, that's what's exciting, because that's how you start to judge, right? Who's the top tier, who's the middle tier, who's the bottom tier, is when they start racing against each other. And you kind of do that. Well, this one beat that one and this one beat that one, so this one must be better than the other one, which is fun.
Yeah, exactly. You've seen them all, and obviously the horses that are at the top of the field, the top of the crop, have looked wonderful amongst horses that are lesser than them. But now, exactly what you said, now you start to see them collide. And that's when you start to really see the cream rise to the top. Let's take a look at the standings here. Forte, the Breeders' Cup champion, obviously has the lead here in the points. What else is interesting here is that Instant Coffee is racing in the Lecomte. This coming Saturday, what is it, the date? The 20th? I don't have it in front of me, but
the 21st.
It's going to be, honestly, this is the breakthrough where people start really saying, this is my horse, this is my horse. And there's a few interesting horses in this race. And where do you come out? We'll take a look at the field in a second, but let's discuss these standings. Does anything mean anything yet outside of Forte?
I think that Forte is in with 40 points already, right? So that's kind of, that. What I think is interesting about this race is you have 5 horses that are on the standings that have already garnered points with Instant Coffee, Victory Formation, Dennington, Echo Again, and Confidence Game. And so this is kind of the one where, as we said, they start facing off against each other. That's where you start to get interested, is seeing who does rise to the crop. The other important thing to remember is that the Lecomte kicks off the winners getting 20 points, right? So all of the races previously, aside from the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, have been 10-point races. So now you kick it up a notch. Now the races are worth 20 points. And that's when the standings, you're going to start seeing horses jump up, and you win this race with 20 points. If you're someone like Instant Coffee and now you're at 32, you've kind of found your way into the Derby already.
Yep. And also it'll start the engine up, and you'll see it week by week. This is, like I said already, this is the horse that I'm going to, stake my claim to. We are going to ride this horse through the thing. But next week there's another prep that, this is the beauty of the new year, is that from here on out, guys, we're getting new hype engines week to week, because all these preps start now, and it's a super exciting time of year. So if you can't tell, I'm pumped on it. Let's take a look at the full field here for Lecomte. Once again, this is Fairgrounds. Pull her up, Colin.
There we go. We got a field of 8. Field of 8 with Echo Again is kind of the name that jumps out at you, right? Echo Again had a lot of talk going into the Springboard Mile, ended up being co-favorite with Giant Mischief, right? And those were the two that you were kind of going back and forth on. Giant Mischief had that stumble at the start and had that huge run at the end, which really made it impressive, although they both got beat by Wild Atlantic Storm, who, I'll give myself a shameless plug, gave out that on the live stream that night at Remington Park at like 11:30 night Eastern.
So many of the millions of listeners across the country caught that, by the way.
Yes, they did. It was a hot topic for me. And yes. Echo Again was not the one that you probably want to play back from that race, right? I mean, I'm definitely interested in seeing Giant Mischief again. Echo Again is probably a fade for me. We were just looking at the circa Kentucky Derby future odds. This horse was listed at 40-1, which to me, I wouldn't be betting Echo again at 40-1 until I see something maybe, or at least a lot more impressive than we saw the last 2 races, because he also ran in the Iroquois and lost to Curly Jack by 14 lengths. So, Steve Asmussen's barn had Extra Anejo as the real kind of the powerful horse, and Steve Asmussen's 0 for 23 in the Derbies, and at the beginning of, I'll say like maybe the September-October time period with Extra Anejo and Echo again, you were thinking, wow, Steve Asmussen's got some impressive 2-year-olds going into the Derby season, and now, Extra Anejo is back training again, I believe. But what you saw with Echo again and Extra Anejo being taken off the Derby trail, Asmussen's certainly dropped down a peg as to how you may have viewed his barn back in September.
Exactly. And Tyler Gaffleone is a great jockey. We love him here at Trust the Profits. He's never won a Derby either. 40-1. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're new to the prep season, 40-1 on a futures at this point in the season sounds like a long shot. That is absolutely not a long shot at this point in the season. That tells me that he's one of the favorites at this point in the season. January 14th, we sit here. A lot of credibility going to Echo again, and I'll kind of mirror your talking to him. I don't see how you could bet that as a futures bet. Now in this race, totally different concept. This is a 8 horse field. There's about 3 I think you can instantly toss out of this field, and then there's about 5 that are super interesting, and we can run through them one at a time. And I want to give some credit to Matthew DeSantis, who threw some notes my way, because this has been a tough week for me personally. Had some sickness and a lot of stuff that I won't go deep into this week. But Echo again should be the lone speed, but the performance at the Springboard Mile makes him a play against for Matthew. And again, with that said, I just don't see how, if you are a futures bettor, which I'm really not, I don't see how you can put a lot of credence in that 40-1 and feel good about that, even if you're looking to make a $10 wager or something like that. But Colin doesn't sound super confident or comfortable with Echo again either. So
no,
do you want to go ahead and move on to number 2 here, or do you want to talk about his odds in this race? How do you want to work this? You tell me.
Let's go on to number 2, Dennington out of the Kenny McPeak barn, who was 3rd to Victory Formation in the Smarty Jones at Oaklawn. He picked up 3 points in the Smarty Jones, 1 point in the Kentucky Jockey Club to get his 4 points. He's by Gunrunner, which is kind of the hot sire, right, of the Derby that everyone is keeping their eyes on. To me, this horse is a cut below the others. I mean, to be honest, I have kind of 3 horses that are really creeping up my ladder of who I'm interested in for the Derby, and that's the 4, 5, and 7 in this race. So for me, Dennington, I need to see that next step forward. From a speed figure, really popped on his maiden win at Churchill, but then came back and was 5th to Instant Coffee and 6 lengths behind Victory Formation, 2 horses that I would have ahead of Dennington. And I'm hoping that Confidence Game and Tapits Conquest are more in that ballpark like Victory Formation as opposed to a horse like Dennington, maybe underneath. But for me, at least on Saturday night, a week before, I'll probably won't have this horse to win.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a jockey trainer combo type person, it doesn't get much lower on the totem pole for me. I hate Kenny McPeak. I mean, I don't hate anybody. Well, yeah, I do, but Kenny McPeak is just, he's a douchebag. He's an arrogant prick. He comes off that way. I'm sorry, everybody on horse racing Twitter to hate, and Lannery, man, Lannery, the one thing I'll say about Lannery is he wins a lot when he's not supposed to. And when he's on a good horse, he doesn't seem to get it done. And I don't like you just said, I don't think he's a cut below. I don't think he's got a shot here. It's a toss for me when it comes to this race. And obviously in the big picture where I think he's around 200-1 in the Derby trail again, I wouldn't even put a buck on that horse. I mean, it's just, he's not going to be in the starting gate, in May. So, for the connections, good luck, but I don't love it. Let's move on to number 3 here. Bromley, another Kentucky bred out of Lobo and the Castellano, Javi Castellano, who I'm a big fan of, but go ahead. Where are you at on Bromley, the 3 horse here?
Hall of Famer. Bromley has 2 wins in 2 starts. The last race on the synthetic 6 furlongs at Turfway. To me, it's a wait and see on these types of horses. I feel like I'd rather put my money on these types of races like the Lecomte and the horses that have already proven to run at the distance over the dirt. So that's just kind of like where I generally tend to fall into. And yeah, that'll make me miss a horse like Bromley if he surprises me. But to me, he won't be on top for me either.
Exactly. So I think we can get by him pretty quick here. We'll go to number 4, Confidence Game. Jimmy Graham, always a threat to pull an upset. DeSormo is the trainer here. Let's see what Matthew DeSantis sent me in notes. He's a big X factor, seems to need the lead, and really matured based on his last effort. And again, folks, ladies and gentlemen, we're dealing with horses that are in some stage of like post puberty. If you're comparing it to a human being, you're somewhere in that like 15 to 21-year-old phase where you see it in pro athletes all the time. Some kids are ready to go at 17 years old, like a LeBron James, for example. And sometimes they don't peak until they're 25 years old. And it just, these horses can change so much over the course of their 3-year-old season. We've seen it time and time again where they come in like this point in the season and they're not super impressive. And then 2 months from now, we're talking about a completely different animal. But where are you at on the 4 horse here?
Yeah, Confidence Game is one of the horses that's on my list that I'm really excited to see back. He ran on November 26th at Churchill Downs. That was the closing day of that meet, remember, or the second to last day of that meet when they had all the 2-year-old races, right? And if you go back to our Trusted Profits YouTube page, we did a top 5 of the best finishes in the juvenile races of the 2022 end of the season. And Confidence Game was, I believe, he was definitely in that top 5. I don't remember which number he was against Rocket Can.
Yes.
They had an unbelievable stretch run, just going back and forth at it. I think he fell behind a little bit and came back to win. And I was really impressed with that effort going 1 mile and a 16th over the Churchill Downs dirt. Remember, the one big thing about Rich Strike, that if you did have Rich Strike, it was he had that impressive win over the Churchill Downs dirt. So is it going to transfer to the Fairgrounds track? I don't know. But that's something that I've already kind of got in the back of my mind, is that really impressive race that he had over Churchill. I'm also impressed at the way he, they're not all wins on his past performances, but he's shown the ability to both be on the lead and also come from behind and at least pass horses later in a race, both in his maiden, his first start when he was 7th and finished 3rd, and 2 back, he was 4th and finished 2nd, 7 lengths behind Forbidden Secret. And then, of course, in his win, he was on the front end the whole time. I thought that was a real gutsy effort, and I'm really excited to see Confidence Game come back.
And if you're looking at the future odds, he's 150 to 1. Now, there's a horse you might want to slam $10 on for me.
I would. Yeah,
it seems like he's trending in the right direction. Also, in Matt DeSantis' notes here, we have fractions are as fast as Echo against fractions. I mean, he is close. He's right in that mix, and it is January, ladies and gentlemen. We are 4 months out, so it is tough to tell. But I mean, there's a horse that if you're gonna throw 10, whatever your budget is, $10, $50, whatever you're doing on a horse that's got potential to like peak, maybe get lucky, peak at the right time and have a shot at the Derby at 150 to 1. Bada boom, bada bing. I like Confidence Game as much as anybody right now. Number 5, Tapits Conquest, the Brad Cox, Flory Giroux, who you don't get much better than that with the jockey trainer combo, and Tapit is, a sire to be reckoned with every year. Cox always seems to have 2 or 3 monsters leading into Derby season. Is this one of those monsters for you?
I don't know yet, but I am excited to see this horse back. This horse ran on October 1st on a day when me and Vinny were actually talking about some races to pay attention to back in October, about races that might show us a little bit something. And Tapits Conquest was most impressive that day. The first race he lost to the horse by the name of Powerful, who won on the 2-year-old day at Churchill Downs that I previously mentioned. He's out of the Asmussen bar. He kicked away, but that race that Powerful won last out was 6.5 furlongs. On that same day that we talked about with Tapits Conquest, Frank's Honor also won at Churchill Downs. He's off the Kentucky Derby Trail. He's the one that had that misstep in the race that I believe was actually, I think that was Echo again, who was in that race. Remember that race got canceled?
Yes,
they ran halfway up at Saratoga. Then all of a sudden they couldn't get the gate out of the way and they had to stop the race.
Yeah, that was a wild one.
I think that was Echo again, if I remember.
I think it was too. I'm sure somebody will correct us in the comments if we're wrong, but
so Tapits Conquest to me was really impressive that day. You can't ignore the Cox barn right now. I mean, everything coming out of Cox's barn is really good. So I'll be interested to see what the odds are for Tapits Conquest on the day of the Lecomte. He'd be a horse that I'm, especially with Giroux up, right? I think Matt.
That's what I was going to say. That was my comment coming was when Cox puts Giroux up, you know what's serious. Like that's his go-to on a shoe in where Cox feels like he can win with. It's Florent Giroux every time. That's his go-to guy. That's a signal to me. I mean, take it or leave it, but
he had a bullet workout on Christmas Eve, going 5 furlongs in a minute. Then's had 2 slower 5 furlong workouts, probably just, keyed in on this race. The one thing between the two, right, is you got Tapits Conquest, who's only raced 2 times, and you've got Confidence Game, who this will be his 6th race, and he's hit the money 4 out of 5 times. And experience, they're obviously going to take a big jump in experience, but that's something else that I might take into my wagering on the Lecomte, is that the Confidence Game has that experience of 5 races, along with 2 Phil. He's the other horse that has 5 races coming into this race. And
we'll jump into it in a second here, but Cox has another wildly good horse in this field too. So let's move on. Number 6, Itzos, Brian Hernandez Jr. I mean, do we need to say a whole lot here? I don't.
I would read what Matt said, because I think he had an interesting note about this horse being a half or a sister.
Champion pedigree underneath is half to Rachel Alexandria.
Yeah, and, I haven't done much in
Rachel Alexandra, sorry. But yeah, I think the horse is wildly outmatched here, and I think I don't know. I think there's 3 or 4 much better choices here. I'm sure the horse has got. I mean, to be in. Here we go with the Lecomte. This is the first major prep race in a lot of our opinion. You gotta have talent and the right connections to even make it to this point. But I think there's 3 or 4 way better choices here, so I'm not going to waste anybody's time on that horse. But hey, comment below if you disagree with me. But Colin, you don't have a whole lot on this horse either.
No, which means it's going to be a Mark Palmer special, right? We're going to get
hell yeah.
You guys skipped over Itzos. The only thing I have on Itzos is first time out. He lost by 14 lengths to Gun Pilot, who lost to Verifying today. Gun Pilot had a lot of talk going into today's races. But other than that, I haven't done enough research on Itzos yet to give you anything mind-boggling.
Let's go into the other Brad Cox joint, Instant Coffee, who's, I think, maybe the most highly touted out of this group. Where's he at in the futures odds? Let's see.
70 to 1.
70 to 1. Okay. So Echo again and Instant Coffee. 2. I mean, if we're talking big picture, where are we really at with Kentucky Derby? These 2 are both heavily in the conversation. You got, and I think there's 2 others that are like we've already discussed. Confidence Game and Tapits Conquest could be every bit as effective in the long haul here, but Instant Coffee, you got Saez up. You're not going to get much better than Luis Saez in most cases, although he's been less than beautiful lately. But again, Cox brings 2 or 3 to the barn every year that have a shot, maybe even more than that some years. Instant Coffee, where you at?
It's hard to knock him. One bad thing has been the speed figures, at least going by Brisnet, have continued to decline, which isn't necessarily the best thing that you want to see. However, the loss that he had, he's 2 for 3, broke his maiden. Then he ran in that very key race, the Breeders' Futurity, which I keep talking about both on Twitter and on my shows. That race had 6 winners come back from it.
Yes.
Everything that's come out of that race has been on fire. So for him to finish 4th behind Forte Loggins and then Red Route 1, is not like a terrible,
that's not a minus. That's a really good 4th. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And it's like making the playoffs in the NFL and getting beat by a better team. Like sometimes it's just a respectable position. So especially 4 months away from the Derby where you have some time to spread your wings a little bit.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say. He's only raced 3 times, so you're taking a leap of faith, not knowing really. He came back to win the Kentucky Jockey Club, which was actually a key race on last year's Derby Trail. He had a really great stretch run in that Kentucky Jockey Club to get up to beat Curly Jack and Haystrike. I think Red Route 1 was also in that race, who had some traffic issues, who I think is definitely a playback coming back from that race. So Instant Coffee, I mean, what's the price going to be on him, I guess, is interesting for me.
And again, morning line odds are not out yet, and that's going to be a big factor here, I think, obviously, in how you bet this race. So we're not going to advise any type of betting strategy here for that reason. But
if he ends up, I mean, if Echo again goes off the favorite, and then you've got my 4, 5, and 7 as like, I'd assume they'd probably be the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Yes, 100%.
If he's 4th, I'd probably take him over Tapits Conquest, probably because of that, a little extra knowing about him. But we'll see what the prices come down to. He's a really shown to be a good horse so far, sired by Boldoro, out of a dam sire of Uncle Mo. So the breeding's there. Average winning distance 6.4, 7.5 on the dam sire side. I'm interested in Instant Coffee. He'd be one that I'm interested in.
Side note for Matthew DeSantis, should benefit from the medium-sized field and not being so far back as he was in the Futurity, which is very true because we mentioned how tough that Futurity field was. This field is a tough field, but it's 8 horses. And like we've talked about, and, we could be right or wrong here, but I think you can quickly eliminate 3 of them. And I think you got about a 5 legit horse field here. And the other 3 are just in it for the, whatever. But, yeah, the instant call. I think the 2 Cox horses to me are the bettable horses here. I tend to stray off of Asmussen and Tyler when it comes to, the Derby Trail in general. But, Asmussen's had some monsters, and this could be one. Especially if you're a futures odds person, the horse is getting a ton of respect in the futures. So,
yeah.
What about number 8?
Put it this way, though, real quick. I could definitely see this being a Brad Cox exacta.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I mean, for real, and we're a full week away from this happening, so things can change, and I'm not going to bet either of those horses if they're anywhere near like even money or something, which I don't think they will be. But I think there's enough money that's going to be spread out amongst those 4 that we've been talking about. So you might get a decent price, and I think Echo again will be the favorite, and I will fade him versus those Cox horses when it comes to the ticket window. So 2 fills, number 8, Jareth Loveberry, who's a monster of a jockey on the off tracks. Let's see how he does at Fairgrounds against these guys. But I mean, where are we at on 2 fills?
Yeah, and you just mentioned it. His last race was over a sloppy track in the Street Sense at Churchill Downs. He does have 3 wins out of 5 races, and one of those losses was in that exact same key race that we talked about with the Breeders' Futurity, in which he finished 7th behind Forte. He was 70-1 that day, and he's one of the 6 that came back to win, which was that Street Sense.
Yeah, I think we can toss. I think we can toss the fact that as a negative from that race, because at this point, if you were in contention in that race, you're part of the discussion at least. And 2 fills is going to be a price, bro. So, I mean, if you're looking for a price, maybe. I mean,
yeah, my note was interesting in an underneath position for a price.
Exactly. And Matt's notes, he sent me. He's been progressing solidly as speed figures, so he's improving, which is what you want to see in a young horse, obviously. At this age, is you don't want to see a decline at this point. The horses, they're maturing right now, so and they're at the very early stages of maturing too. So you want to see a progression, and like I said earlier, as long as you're going up that ladder, which he is, and getting better each time out, who knows where 2 fills is going to be at? But yeah, like you said, that's going to be like a 20-1 piece. I mean, that's something you're going to maybe drop into your trifecta box I wouldn't put him in an exacta, but maybe a try box or something like that. But
Yeah, he might be good in your try and supers in third and fourth. I'd like to know from the viewers out there, as far as workouts concerned on two fills, right? So what kind of stands out to me is he has 2 bullets only out of 14 and 9 races in December at Hawthorne. When he goes 5 furlongs in 59 seconds, 4 furlongs in 47 seconds, right? That's what you want to see. Those are the numbers: 47, 48 for 4, 59 in a minute for 5 furlongs. Then he goes 4 furlongs in 53 seconds and 4 furlongs in 49 seconds, 31 out of 88 at Fairgrounds. So to me, I'm trying to get better in understanding how trainers work and how they work the horses. And maybe it's just, we got them tuned up and now we're just trying to keep them fresh. But in my mind, when I see those last 2 just being really, much slower, I tend to just he's not going to be on top for me.
yeah, I highly doubt I'm going to have any actual money on 2 fills. But if you're the type of person who absolutely fades the chalk, which I understand, I mean, I think it was Vic Stauffer was on one of our shows a couple years ago, and his whole thing was, hey, if you're betting 20-1 horses all day, you only have to be right 1 out of 20 times to break even. And that's a great point if you're a bettor. But it requires an obnoxious amount of patience that I don't have. I mean, I'd rather bet a 5-1 horse and only, or in the neighborhood of 3-1 to 10-1 and actually be right 1 out of 3 times, or whatever it is. But it's a good point. I mean, if you're just strictly a price player, I think that's the best price play on the board. And there's so many unknowns, guys. We're talking 2-year-olds in the infancy of their careers. Where are you at, Colin? Who's the best price play here in this field? It's only 8-horse field, so.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Is I would probably, you crossed out the 6 Itzos.
Gone.
I'd probably take Dennington.
No.
Over. Hold on. Let me look at this.
All right, Colin, I got to do something real quick.
Yes.
For all the new viewers, I haven't done this all year. This is a Kentucky Derby season regular thing here on Trust the Profits from your boy El Hombre. Here's the news. I don't think Colin's been on our show where I've done this. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Dennington, he's my Brooklyn Bridge horse. Are you familiar with what that means?
Are you going to jump?
Yes. If that horse, I'll say it. If Dennington wins, I will drive up to Brooklyn, New York in my car, and we'll do a live stream of me jumping off that bridge to my death on live YouTube. You guys can benefit from all the new viewership that you're going to get out of this suicide right on TV. That's the odds I give Dennington. Go ahead, though. Make your point. I apologize for the interruption there.
Well, you asked me for a price. I obviously talked about four other horses I like before Dennington, right?
Well, you're of course, yeah. I mean, yeah, he's probably my 7th out of 8.
If I'm picking between
horses.
Dennington, Bromley, Itzos, and 2 fills, right? Those are the 4 that you're probably like, where's your price going to be?
Yeah, they're instant tosses, yeah.
The Bromley is the unknown factor. Can Bromley step up? He's got Javier Castellano up. That's not a bad thing. I'd rather take Dennington, who at least I know was 3rd to Victory Formation, who I think pretty highly of, and including Angel of Empire, who ran good in that Smarty Jones. So for him to finish up 3rd, Dennington would probably be the one I'd put. I'd probably be Dennington and 2 fills would be the 2 that that I'd be going between.
I just wanted to establish early in the Derby season that the Brooklyn Bridge horses are alive and well. It's happening again this year. I had 3 or 4 last year that if that horse won, I would do a live stream on YouTube, TikTok, whatever the kids are doing nowadays, and just jump to my death. Right? For the benefit of Trust the Profits, I'm here for you guys. I want everybody to benefit from that. But that horse has no shot. Anything else to close this out? We are super excited, guys. I mean, this is the time of year. Besides Breeders' Cup, I think, I think that most fans are more excited for the Triple Crown. I think our little group of profits usually tend to stray toward Breeders' Cup a little bit more, but the general horse racing community, I think it's the Triple Crown. And man, it's a close second. So we're excited. This is going to be the first one where I think I mentioned at the beginning. This is where people are going to start talking, boy. And I'm ready for it, baby. Let's do it. We're going to start putting out top 10s, top 25 videos. Where are you guys at? Mention it. Who's your horse at this point in the season? Colin, close us out. What's on your mind for the Lecomte at Fairgrounds next weekend?
Well, two things real quick. Don't forget to sign up for Tour de Force. This is the first race for the Tour de Force. Find maybe the description in the link here, the link in the description below. But also, don't just focus on the Lecomte on Saturday at Fairgrounds, because the card is stacked with, I think, 6 or 7 maiden special weights, and you've got horses coming back. It's a very interesting card, and just because it's not a Derby points race does not mean that you're not going to find a horse that's going to be in later races, right? So keep an eye on all of those maiden special weights.
Yes, sir. We are going to.
And last year's Lecomte produced Epicenter and Cyberknife, both ran in that race. So
2 of the top 3 or 4 horses of the year for sure.
Not that
exactly. I was going to bring that same point up. I mean, that's Lecomte had. I mean, historically, go back and look at the Lecomte for the last 20 years. You're going to see that a lot of players have come out of that. I mean, it's the early phases. Fairgrounds produces some good horses, and yeah, man, we expect that this year. And I think there's a couple that we just talked about here that are going to be alive and well in the conversation, in April. So that's what we're looking for. We're going to follow them up. We're going to beat this thing to death. So if you are the type of person who doesn't have time to, drill down into the numbers deep, we'll do that for you. Jump on here, watch our shows. We're going to do our best to get winners, just like we did for the Breeders' Cup. So, Colin, let's do this, baby.
Let's go.
Peace out. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and we're out of here. Bye-bye.